the show. It is March 17th, 2024. It's St. Patrick's Day. I've got my green on. I'm Eric Murphy. This is Skeptic Generation, and we need to talk. Hey, everybody. Oh, you can probably hear I have the show on my cell phone. I'm trying to keep messages up so I can see the live chat. But hey, everybody, welcome back. Last week we had a bit of a technical issue on my part, so I apologize for the lapse in the episode. I want to stay consistent, and so I'm hoping that is the last time we're going to have that issue. But I am happy to be back, and I'm happy that you're here with me. It's exciting. I've already got a call in the queue. If you want to call in, please do. You can call 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436, or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN, SKEPGEN, to call toll free. If you do that, you can talk to us and, me today, and I really appreciate that. I was actually thinking about this for the episode. It's just a thought, and what I was thinking about was begging the question. Right. So begging the question is when you bake an assumption into a question. Right. So you're trying to front load your point, or certain thoughts that should be talked about first. I think an example would be. Hey, does your wife know you're cheating on her? Right? Yes or no? The assumption is that you're cheating on your wife, right? Not good. And so what I was wondering is, when it comes to methodological naturalism, methodological naturalism is the kind of philosophic stance that everything has a natural cause, and that there are scientific explanations for phenomena that we experience, right? And that kind of excludes supernatural causation and kind of the religious, spiritual causation. And am I begging the question because I'm approaching it from a naturalist worldview when I say provide proof, but that proof can only be scientific? Am I begging the question? And if I'm not, can we assume that our interlocutor is also approaching it from a methodologically naturalist worldview? I don't know. I think it is interesting, if anything, just to talk about. And so obviously, the show is open to religious callers first, because I want to talk about what you believe and why. But our most recent calls have been from non-believers. Our last episode was just a parade of atheopagans, which was interesting. I don't want this to be an atheopagan show, but that was definitely the theme of the episode last time. So I don't know, just a thought, and I'd love to see what you have to say about it. Do I have any major announcements? I'm sure I do. I'll get to it, but I'd love to talk to our first caller. Again, before I do, one more time with the phone number, because I want this to be a full episode. 412-SKEPGEN, that's 412-753-7436, or online, tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Yep, it is absolutely free, and I'd love to talk to you. All right, in the meantime, let's go to our first caller. Let's talk to Michael in New York. Michael, you're on SKEPGEN.
Hey, Eric. How are you doing today?
Hey, you know what? I'm doing good. Caffeine's hitting just right, and I'm ready to dive right in. Hey, it's important. It's important. What did you want to talk about today?
So it's kind of two sides of the same coin. I'm dealing with a situation. I won't go into too much detail, but the very short version is that I suffered being the target of a false allegation, and it absolutely destroyed my professional life. It absolutely destroyed my personal life.
Oh, geez.
It took me a full 10 months to kind of get to the bottom of it. These things are very hard to trace back. It's like they're the reverse telephone game. But when I got to the bottom of it, it was absolute nonsense. And So the two things I've been dealing with are, number one, I don't have, I'm an atheist, so I don't believe that, it's very easy for someone like my parents to say, well, these people that did this will get what's coming to them. And there's this, you have faith in the corrective mechanism of God or gods or whatever that, the karma will sort itself out. And I don't have that. Yeah. So I'm really struggling with lack of accountability for people who were intentionally malicious and set out to damage me and tear me down, and it worked. And I don't have the ability to just go, well, they'll get what's coming to them. Like, I'm really having trouble coping with that. And the second part of that is, I now that I've gotten to the bottom of it and, being able to approach a conversation saying, look, I have material evidence that these things you're saying are not true. I have material evidence that these people who made this up planned it and I have evidence of them. I can, if you care about facts and evidence here, I can show you that the belief that you're holding here about me or what I did is not correct. But it's been like screaming into a void because people really seem to have made up their minds and they don't care about evidence. They don't care about the facts. They don't care about my side of things. And I'm an engineer. I'm a very, process-based, evidence-based guy. And so I don't even know how to start a conversation with someone who does not care that they're wrong. So those are two very big questions, and thanks for hearing me out. But any comments you have would be certainly well received.
Oh my. Okay. Yeah, that is quite a bit. Let me break that apart a bit. So I think the first thing is like I'll go into least to most satisfying to hear. I think that's how I'll break it up. I think something that really, really sucks is that there is no cosmic justice, there is no hell, and terrible people who do terrible things get away with it. And I absolutely hate it. It does help knowing that the other side of it is that bad things happening to good people isn't by design either. And so one of the things that I remind myself is that I live in a world that, we just got to watch out. It doesn't matter how nice of a person you are. It doesn't matter how good of a neighbor you are. Bad things happening to you is not because you deserve it, but just because we live in a random world. But as far as the concept of a cosmic justice, it reminds me, when I was first really interacting with kind of non-believer spaces, and I heard somebody say that religion is an organization that tells you you're sick to sell you the cure. It breaks your leg to sell you a crutch. And the idea of cosmic justice or of a heaven or of a hell are these concepts that sound great, and you get sold on it. And even if it was never true, you feel the loss. If I were to tell you that you're going to win the lottery next week, and I really tell you to the point that you believe me, when you don't win the lottery next week, even though you were never going to, the fact that I promised you that and you believed that, you feel a loss, even though you never had it in the first place. And that is it is a type of damage that people don't think about. When people talk about Pascal's wager and, you gain or lose nothing by believing, you gain everything by believing, you lose nothing. Well, what you lose, what you have to deal with is the religious trauma of needing to unlearn things. It's kind of the same as experiencing loss and death. That when I lost my religious beliefs, when I left the faith, I had to grieve everyone who had died in my life a second time, right? There was the time when they died and I grieved and I thought, I'm going to see them in heaven. And then there was the second time I grieved when I realized I would never see them again. And it's not fair. It's not fair to be sold that. Go ahead.
There almost seems to be there's an even more insidious side to this that I've found, which is that if society at large believes that things will work themselves out that way, it sort of seems to alleviate their responsibility for having to do anything. like a lot of people who are close to me said, yeah, it really sucks that they did this to you, and that's horrible, but they'll just get what's coming to them, and I don't really want to speak up and get so people, there's sort of this Kantian categorical imperative type thing where everyone just says, well, that sucks, but I'm sure it'll get sorted, but that means it doesn't, because it doesn't happen automatically. If everyone comes together and says, we don't accept this behavior, and we're not going to tolerate this behavior, and that's wrong, and there's a pushback, these things get fixed. So it sort of seems like there's some sort of this religious undercurrent to people just believing that it'll sort itself out, that sort of almost blocks people or dissuades them from trying to get involved and trying to speak up for what's right, on their own kind of agency.
I agree. I think that I'm sorry. I was making an adjustment to the the EQ. There was an audio issue. I hate having to produce and host at the exact same time. I'm not able to give full attention. I apologize, Michael. Could you say the last part of that again so I can jump back in? I'm sorry. Michael? Oh. Full attention. Let me see. Michael, can you hear me?
I can now, yes.
Got it. Okay, so I apologize. It looks like there was an issue. Okay. Let me just make sure that I've got this correct. 1 second. I'm making a live adjustment on the...
No worries.
Michael, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, good. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay.
That's okay, no problem.
So what I was saying was I had to split my attention for a minute. Could you repeat yourself at the end there? I had to make an adjustment to the audio, obviously, and I lost the end of that train of conversation.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Thank you.
I was just saying that it seems like everyone having this faith that the justice will automatically exact itself, it seems to sort of be a deterrent or like an excuse for people not to get involved and to speak up and say, hey, that's not right. Because if you believe that the mechanism is self-exacting or whatever, and I don't believe that. I think we have to create justice, and I think we have to speak up when something's not right. But I've encountered so many people throughout the situation saying, yeah, that's terrible, but they'll get what's coming to them. But I don't really feel like I should be speaking up, and so I think it sort of causes a bigger detriment to society as a whole, because it seems to dissuade people from using their voice when there's something that's wrong that's happening.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Isn't it nice to know that, that it's just going to get taken care of, and those bad people are going to get what's coming to them, and those good people are going to get rewarded in some other way that's, it's this karma idea. I think the only version of that I've ever really agreed with is when I was very involved in other atheist communities. There were some really crummy people. And I kept quiet. I didn't want to make things worse for myself. I didn't want to get bullied, and so I didn't say anything. I didn't speak up, and I just sat back and wound up just kind of leaving. But what wound up happening is those people who were bullies turned their attention to others and bullied them instead. And eventually they were found out for being the crappy people that they were. And so, yeah, the only kind of, karma, quote unquote, that I've really interacted with is that people are going to be shitty. Shitty people are going to be shitty after they've been shitty to you. And you're not, even if you're feeling alone now, you're not going to be alone forever. I'm really, really sorry that you dealt with that. But what I can tell you is that those people who absolutely fucked you over, they're not, if that's in their character, they're going to do it to others. And before you know it, they're going to be seen for who they are. But unfortunately, it also means that people like you and I have got to pay the price. The best I can say is, dwelling on it can make it harder for you to move on. I know dwelling on it made harder for me to move on. So you kind of have to balance between how much you want to see that justice versus the toll that it will take on you, you know?
I do know. Yeah, it's definitely, it's impacted my health. It's impacted my, my intimate relationships. There's,
Yeah.
looking at legal options, and that is, breathtakingly expensive. And so it just sort of consumes every aspect of your life. And kind of like exactly what you were saying, there are other people that were close to me, professionally and personally, who kind of said, yeah, that really sucks, but like, maybe it'll blow over. And it's like you were saying, these people who did this and were this malicious, they're not going to wake up tomorrow and magically not be malicious. They're going to still be like that. And to think that just because you weren't the target of it that time, I think that's a very naive position to take, that, well, at least it wasn't me, so I'm not going to say anything. Like, well, what if it is you next time? Then what are you going to do?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You see it with really conservative politicians, who have hardline anti-trans stances. Is, as soon as they get comfortable, they move on to, well, actually, I really don't like the gays either. It's once they get, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop.
Right.
And quitting, leaving because you got your own and not being there for everybody else means that you're going to keep having to fight for your own, and also everyone else loses. So no, right. I think socially that's a really, really important point to make. Michael, that sucks. I'm sorry.
I appreciate it, and there's a part of me that's like, I have tried when I can to use my voice and to speak up and to call attention to bad behaviors, or people, or corporations doing things that are irresponsible within my little tiny corner of the world, right? Yeah. But I think one of the things that was really saddening to me about this is that no one repaid that favor. No one stood up and said, hey, you guys have crucified this dude with no evidence. Like, no one checked to see if this was true. No one took that hard line. Everyone just ran with it. And it was very disappointing to see people I've known for literally years just run with it like that and not even call me and say, hey, dude, is this true? Did you do this? And I would never do that to a friend. I would never do that to a friend without having a conversation first. And I think that's what was the most hard to deal with through all of this.
Oh, absolutely. Gosh, I remember I was in my 20s, early 20s, and I was a supervisor for a small company. And our shared district supervisor was absolutely just the worst, and was doing some really, really unethical stuff. And so I talked to my peers, and I said, hey, if we stand up together, we can get this fixed. And so I stood up, and I was right up at the front, and I led the charge, and I turned around, and none of them were there to get my back. And I remember getting together with them afterward and saying, hey, when the time came to stand up and do the right thing, I want you to know that the kind of person you are right now is the kind of person who wasn't there. The time came for you to do the right thing, and you did it. And I honestly, I did not miss those friendships. And for those people who threw you under the bus, there are better friends.
Well, they're not friendships, right?
No,
I wouldn't use the word friend for that. It's kind of like, there. If you don't have my back when I need you, we're not friends,
This is going to sound really, really, really dumb. Somebody shared with me this clip of, Tyler Perry's Medea character.
Yeah.
Is a clip from a play where someone, had clipped Medea saying that, treat friends like branches, and some friends are leaves. And when the season comes, it's beautiful and they blossom, but when the wind blows, they go. And others are, branches on a tree, and those ones can support your weight. You don't hold your weight on the leaves. You just appreciate them for what they are. And those branches can hold, but they're not going to be there forever. And so you don't lean on them super hard. And then you have those very, very few friends, maybe one or two, who are roots, who are there to support you, and grow you no matter what. And it's not necessarily about cutting everyone out until you only have roots, but it can be about just understanding that not all friends are friends who are going to be there forever.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, it is. And there were, I can name 3 people in my life who said, hey, hold on a second. Let's figure out what's going on here. Let's talk to Michael and see what he has to say about this. Let's see if there's actually any evidence that he did this thing that you're saying, and then why are you spreading rumors about this dude? Like, there were 3 people who took that position, and obviously I'm incredibly grateful to those 3 people, but I'm very disappointed that it was such a small number, I guess.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that can inform the investment that you give into those people, that
for sure.
Fair weather friends aren't going to be there forever. You can appreciate them for that kind of flash in the pan beauty of the season. It's green, but it's flighty, and
Sure.
I know that I had a lot of relationships like that when I was at the ACA, that there were a lot of wonderful people that I spent time with, but that doesn't mean that there were people who were going to support me during the hard times, and I didn't expect them to. That I knew that they wanted to have their community and be a part of that, and I wanted to make sure they prioritized that, and so I didn't ask them to follow me out.
Right.
Yeah. So
well, maybe some of this is, it sounds like, if I'm kind of playing off of what you're saying, that some of this is, my expectation of my relationships with these people didn't match reality.
Yeah.
So maybe I shouldn't expect as much from people, and I have this very perhaps naive thing that people are inherently good and they will inherently right, and so it's funny, right? And I was raised like that. I'm 36, so it's like I'm not a kid, but I there were just so many bad faith actors that it's like I'm sort of reevaluating that a little bit.
Yeah, and in a world where there is no cosmic justice, setting your expectations is one of the few things that you can do to empower yourself in this situation.
Right.
Because you can control that. I've used that as a justification for setting strong boundaries. If I can tell somebody's going to be a fair weather friend, I set those boundaries and I go, hey, here's how I interact with you. Here's the amount of relationship we can have. And that's as much as I'm going to let happen.
Sure. I'm thinking of it like sort of managing bandwidth, because I'm an engineer, so that's how, like you're allotted this much of my emotional bandwidth or whatever. Maybe that's the limit.
Absolutely, that's a wonderful example. Whenever I think another one is like a tap for water. Like you can only get so much. And even if you're giving a little bit of bandwidth to a lot of people, once it's full, it's full. And, if I'm going to cap your download speed, so that, which in this example would be limiting the amount of access that you have to me, it's because I need to or want to have resources for hobbies of mine, things that I enjoy, or other people who deserve, some of my time and attention as well. And you got to advocate that for yourself because, And I'm speaking from experience. I have definitely let myself be a doormat in the past, and so
it was a hard lesson learned. I'll tell you that. Like, I'm glad I learned that lesson. I wish it wasn't at the price of such trauma.
But,
to kind of cap this off, and I know you have other stuff to move on to, and I'm definitely appreciative of your time, but. It's to me, again, because I'm so technical minded, I want to go in and fix. And so to me, it's like this person thinks this thing about me that's not true. And every cell in my body wants to go fix that and have a conversation and say, no, here's the information. And I think the difficult thing for me now is realizing that those people don't care and they don't give a shit. And if they cared about facts or what was true, they wouldn't be holding the position that they're in. And I'm just getting myself to let go of, part of my French, but to just go, well, fuck them. Like, they obviously don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care that they're correct or not correct. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you can say fuck on this show. You're okay. The only reason I haven't done that always in the past is I know that I want to attract like religious callers who can sometimes have their sensibilities upset, but sometimes a good fuck is exactly the right word. And so you're super good. Michael, thank you for calling in, and man, I'm sorry you're dealing with this bullshit. That really, really sucks. What else can I tell you? Is there anything else? I mean, just maybe a little bit of absurdism, a little bit of nihilism in that none of it really matters, And
Sure.
I don't know. It helps me. Sometimes it makes other people more depressed than it helps, but helps me. Michael, have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you for calling.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it.
Take care. That was sweet. I like that. My other caller has dropped out. So I am vamping in the meantime. If you want to call in, please do. A lot of people in the comments were saying, oh, hey, the audio is wonderful. Why was the audio wonderful? Because Michael called in with the link, tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc /SKEPGEN. And just using an online connection got rid of a lot of the extra stuff that happens when people call in on a landline or a cell phone. The connection can be really, really wonderful. So I'm glad that the audio is working out. And in the meantime, I do kind of want to speak up. There are people on in the live chat who are saying, Eric, where are your producers? Let me tell you something. There are none. Ever since V and I started SKEPGEN, it was just the two of us. We have a ton of support outside of the broadcast, right? We have wonderful call screeners and people who help us on managing the Discord, where we do Discord after shows that are managed. If you want to join the Discord, I will be doing an after show after this episode, and I'd be happy to join. And there we kind of, take the jacket off and get a little bit more, intimate in details, and I open up a little bit more, and it's nice to kind of have that hangout. So if you want to see who volunteers and helps, you can see in the outro for the show, everyone is thanked, and it is incredibly appreciated. That is a thing. But as far as actually producing the show, I'm doing that right now. On either side of this camera, I have two screens. One of them is Wirecast, which is the streaming software that is communicating out to YouTube. On this screen, I've got the YouTube live feed, making sure that the connection is up and everything is going out okay. And then Call-In Studio, where I look at the calls that have been screened and pick our callers. But really, honestly, good. Looks like somebody is trying to call in. I hope they continue to keep trying, because that is a really cool topic. Also, if you want to talk to me, there is a prompt that I gave for this episode, and it's about begging the question. So if anybody does have a thought or disagree with me, please call in. Is it begging the question to only settle on a naturalistic response or naturalistic evidence for the existence of a God, right? If somebody says, I believe in a God, and you say, provide me evidence, and they give some kind of supernatural evidence, we don't accept it. Is that begging the question? Is it trying to bake in a worldview that our interlocutor doesn't have? And how do you navigate that? I think that'd be a really, really interesting conversation to have if somebody wants to call in about that. So everything is done live. If I ever sound a little bit distracted, it's because I am. At any given time that you are watching the show, before and now, I'm only able to give about 70% at best, because I'm monitoring the audio levels, the stream health, and all of these other things that are going on to make this show happen. In time, I will be getting a producer. Before we took our hiatus, we had an Amazon wish list where we gathered together the parts to create a producer computer. That's what I'm using right now. But eventually, when I can afford it, I am going to pay somebody to come down and sit behind this computer, and I'll be having the camera pointed elsewhere, where I can just focus on calls. And so while that is a long-term goal, that is definitely the goal that we're going to be going with. So stay tuned for that. Good. Once SR talks to Evan, I will take them. In the meantime, let me check the live chat and see if anything else is going on. John, forgive me, Eric, for the producer comment. I didn't realize you were the only producer. John, no worries. Eric is going to take some clothes off and get more. No, okay. So first off, there's nothing to apologize for. If anything, I think that it provides a little bit of context into why this show is different from others. And that's because I don't have someone who's handling that stuff. I'm doing all the heavy lifting. There's no way that I could do it without your support. As an example, let me see if I can bring this into view. It is because of patron support that I was able to get this Stream Deck. And this Stream Deck lets me do this. And for people who are going to be listening to the podcast, what did Eric just do? I was just showing how the transitions are done. And without being able to load those in, there's no way I'd be able to do all of that on my own. So thank you all for that. Let me see here. One moment. Oh, it looks like Eben is having trouble connecting. If this is the case, then I may not be able to do a super long show today. It's not that I don't want to, it's just that without these conversations, without the bounce back and forth, there's not really much to go on. But I'm doing my best. Okay, let me see. Any other comments or questions in the comments that I can answer? One moment while I take a look. Nathaniel Thompson asked, I'd really like some clarification on the closing comment you made to Michael, speaking in regards to nihilism. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I feel like nihilism has provided me with, honestly, some hope in certain ways. For people who have not been following me for a really long time, I have something called clinical depression. It's just my brain does not create all the chemicals required to not be depressed. It's just a thing that happens. And so in combating that, I've found that, realizing I'm not special. And none of us are. But that fact that we're not special, somehow uniquely chosen by some grand designer, means that we don't have the pressure, We can just create value and meaning for ourselves and each other and live up to those things, and that be enough. And I think that's beautiful. When it comes to relationships, I don't think that there is the one. Because I don't think that there's some unique puzzle piece that naturally fits me. I think that relationships are special because when we connect with somebody else on an intimate level and open ourselves up to developing, that relationship, you build something unique. It isn't so much that you're trying to live up to some grand design that was made for you. Instead, everything you are doing is building that platform. It's not that you find somebody who's perfect for you. It's finding somebody who's willing to grow together with you, because you're not going to be the same forever and they're not either. But growing together is a really, really beautiful thing. And in that way, people who lose those relationships, you're in a long-term relationship. I was in the same relationship from 19 until 29. I thought I had my forever person. And then I realized I wasn't in love anymore. And instead of trying to force it, I realized that, I could respect it for what it was. We built something, and that was beautiful. But leaving that didn't mean that I was doomed to be alone forever. I didn't lose my forever person. And it means that there's hope there, And so when it comes to tempering nihilism with getting shat on by coworkers and peers, the fact is that your neighbor doesn't give a crap about it. If you're to tell your neighbor about what you're dealing with, they don't care. If your neighbor doesn't care, do you think the person down the street does? And if they don't, do you think someone in another state does? No. No. And that's kind of beautiful. It's kind of beautiful to contextualize that when it feels like the world is falling apart, you can justify and go, hey, you know what? It's not. It might seem like that to me, but it's not. One of the things I'm loving about living in Portland now is there is a tree near my backyard that is, I has to be 80 to 100 feet tall. It is so big that I think it would take 4 to 5 people holding hands, arms outstretched to fully like go around the trunk of this tree. And I look at it and I feel so small. And it's beautiful that in the life of this tree, I'm just a moment. And all of my problems, all my stresses or fears and frustrations, when viewed through the lens of that tree, puts me in a context that makes me feel that it's not all the end of the world. So I hope that helps. But yeah, when you live in a world, when you live in a universe that wasn't created by some grand designer, and you don't have some special plan that was picked out just for you, you know, you don't have that expectation that you're going to fail some grand thing bigger than yourself. It's kind of wonderful, and I absolutely love it. I've got a few callers, and I'm really, really grateful for it. Let's see. Titan Uranus says, that's what I call a mature sense of perspective. I don't know. Let's talk to Evan in Washington. Evan, you're live.
Yes, sir.
Hey! So give me just a second. Because I am doing this live and producing it, I was not able to talk and fill out your lower third to get your name in here. So let me just get this.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Let me just type this in. And Evan, what did you want to talk about today?
Well, it wasn't last week, but the week before, there was a mild mentioning of Discworld series.
Oh yeah.
And into this week, we're also talking a bit about self-worth and manner. At least for me, that's what's ringing. So the Discworld. I was raised in Mormonism and was highly illiterate. Okay, I was education deprived. But after I got married, after my mission, I started reading. And the Discworld novels was one of those. And my now ex-wife loved the Discworld novels.
Yeah.
So I was really excited about this, right?
Yeah, Terry Pratchett's incredible.
And yeah, he's amazing. Really amazing and dynamic in drawing out how people can be diverse. And one of the characters is a witch, okay? And she was born with all the traits of evil. And her twin sister was born with all the traits of goodness. And the evil one chose to do good things, and the one born with all the good powers chose to do bad things. In any event, we chose to name our children with their middle names of a character from a book who was dynamic that chose to be good anyway, in spite whatever. And Esme was the name of this witch. And
it's a beautiful
anyways, name. Yeah. Inside my head, this feels all big and powerful, and to the listener, probably really not. But for me, where this all links into was from birth up, my worth was predicated upon God.
Yeah.
I was quite young. I mean, not even 4, when I understood that there wasn't really anything I can do beyond pleasing him. Even that wasn't sufficient to mark my value. It was all just predicated on being obedient to him. And when I started having kids, and we're throwing out these ideals, it really throws a wrench in your psychology, because that was a healthy platform. Be good despite the whatever. And anyways, self-worth was the pivot. It's the one thing, in spite my abuse of my childhood, I always knew, granted it was because of God, I knew that I was worthy of love. No matter how I was treated by my parents or anybody else, I was worthy of love. And it was a quandary that was the pivot that allowed me to let go of God. That even if he didn't find me worthy anyway, I was worthy. And it was in part, not, I don't want to say the Discworld novels, but my children and watching them grow. And while they didn't understand the deepness of those names we gave them, as parents we did. And we worked hard to guide them towards that. And it really is pivotal towards my health now as an adult. So anyways, that's my ramble. That's my 2 cents.
I think that's so beautiful. I love that. It is absolutely a head trip. And speaking to people who were really, really deep in the church and felt that they only had value because of, the God who gave them value. It's
Right.
It's tragic, when you base your self-worth on that. And I definitely do think that a self-worth that's grounded in what we are creating for each other and what you create for yourself, it's so much more cathartic. Isn't the word that there's a tangible quality to it, And
I understand what you're saying. A word is eluding me as well.
Right.
To fill the spot, but
you know what I'm. Yeah, there's
nostalgic comes to mind, but that isn't quite right either.
No, I'm sure the live chat will get it. But
ingrained.
Yeah. It's visceral. Visceral is the word.
Visceral.
Yeah, there's a visceral quality to creating value for yourself and recognizing the value in others and seeing that the value others have is the value that we are giving and creating for each other. And it's beautiful.
Well, one of the, Eric, one of the things I like about your show, I like even Matt Dillahunty, love him. Love the platform he provides. He has an arena. I don't want to degrade his work, but I want to shine a little light on yours. And even Mindshift, I can see it in his work and SR. But I think it's easy for us to forget what we're indirectly asking people to do when we even convey the notion that we don't believe God exists. What we're asking them to do is basically challenge their self-worth. Yeah,
absolutely.
And where that comes from, and in the moment, from my perspective, when I was a believer, I mean, it felt very aggressive. It felt like something I needed to stand up and fight like a lion or something,
Yeah.
On an emotional level, that's where it was at, because it's your whole, your existence is all predicated on that. Right now isn't your existence. After is your existence.
Yeah, and also you go through the hardest part of it, right? When you're deconstructing your faith, you're coming up against all of the whats and whys, and answering them can be so difficult that when you finally do get those answers, and you're finally ready, odds are you've interacted with people who have thrown your lack of knowledge in your face as a reason for, oh, well, you don't believe just because you haven't done the work, and
you do get a lot of that.
Oh, I absolutely
Or you're
have.
angry is the biggest one. You're just angry. Well, however they phrase it, that's what it comes down to.
And it is justified. It is understandable. We just also grow through it. And I don't think that it's necessarily throwing shade at all, because I feel like it needs all of us. People do have that angry reaction often when they leave their faith at first. Yeah. And honestly, I'm not Matt Dillahunty, and I could never be Matt Dillahunty. And there is a need for that. And I'm grateful that He's doing that because I couldn't. And I'm glad that I'm here and me doing what I'm doing because I think that there's value in what I'm doing as well. So,
Right.
and
well, I know that I needed it, even after I'd left.
I did too.
There are other people besides you, like I've mentioned, that try to nurture this arena, and I'm glad to see it growing. I got one more side. I'm sure you got other callers, but aside from like in the thick of the debate, okay, that's not the arena that I think we're going to have fruit on an individual level. It's literally going to be with your neighbor. It's going to be with the clerk that's ringing up your groceries. It's going to be for the person who just did a nice thing, waited for you in line to let you go, or this or that, and the further I've gotten away from believing in God, just like people could spot me out as a Mormon, people can kind of spot you out as an atheist. The little things you don't say, and that provides a degree of tension, when the teller lady that's 80 says, God bless you, and you don't say it back, it can create a problem. And I've found I'm unwilling to walk with who I am. If I don't believe, I ain't going to be tender for you, but I ain't going to be rude either. And so here's what I found out. I'll finish this and then I want to hear is I'll say to that little old lady, she'll say, bless you. She was great with the groceries. I'll say, gosh, you've been an angel. I don't even believe in all that. And I think so.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
You call them an angel, especially that generation of people. You got to mark, a 16-year-old wouldn't take it the same way, but a full-grown fledged adult is gonna receive that most of the time. That's been my encounter, and what that has done for my community over a year or two or 3 or 4, your community absorbs that, and it kind of emanates from you as a persona of who you are. And it has opened up doors for me to have conversations with the people at the library later. Hey, I saw you talk with that lady. Literally, that kind of thing happens to me now. So that's what we need to do, I think, is just literally stand firm with who you are, but let it be safe for them to believe. Let it be safe. Let it be good.
When appropriate. There are times
when appropriate. You challenge the beliefs, absolutely.
Yeah.
Challenge that it's even real or not, but let it be safe for the individual to express themselves to you personally.
What I will say is, like when someone says "bless you" to me, or they say "I'll pray for you" or "God bless," "I'll pray for you" can be mean-spirited sometimes, but
it can be. It's a weapon.
Yeah, but one of the things that I'll say is, I don't actually believe, but I want to take that in the spirit that it was given, and I appreciate the kindness you're expressing there. And calling that a kindness that you're recognizing and seeing in that other person, making them feel seen. I've never actually had a bad experience with that. I've never had somebody push back or feel bad about that. And you're absolutely right. Gosh, before I was ever on YouTube, I was really, really active in the community that I was living in. In fact, I was really active in the school district. I had a Santa suit. And I would dress up as Santa and go read stories to the kids at the libraries. And I, would help the police department collect toys for kids who weren't going to get toys on Christmas. And so we'd hand out toys, or, worked with a local church to collect food for Thanksgiving for families who couldn't necessarily afford a Thanksgiving. And not saying, you need to come in and get preached to, but I found churches who were collecting food so that you could give it to them. Right, you could give it to that family in need, so they could go home and make, a meal with their family, right? And doing that, I often was told, you're doing the Lord's work. It's beautiful. God bless. And we're reflecting Jesus's love. And I'd say, I'm actually a non-believer. And just that, what are they going to say? How can you be a good person when you're standing there helping others, arm in arm, side by side, shoulder to shoulder, working to make the world a better place?
It opens up conversation. It allows for it in a manner. It calls for it. Without you calling the conversation, you being there, calls for the conversation to happen. But I think too, especially when it's used as a weapon, when someone's just trying to rub the wound, as it were. Maybe not these exact words, but I'll just say thank you and just say, may all that is good fall upon you. May all that is good fall upon you, because you're not invoking any blessing from a God. You're just stating what you hope, and that's just your own heart. And what are they going to say?
Evan, your Christianese is still very fluent. You know that?
Oh, yes. I'm very
my
fluent in my
goodness.
Christianese. I have not forgotten the lingo. Yeah.
No. It's so funny being in non-believer spaces and not hearing say, oh, this is on my heart. Oh, walking with a thing. Oh, all of those pieces are just so telling of the community that you are in. I think it's really fun. I see you, Evan, and I'm grateful for you. And if someone says, I'll pray for you, I think the most confrontive that I've been is I'll say, I want to take that in the spirit that it was given. And that does not appear to be in a very kind spirit. And I don't appreciate that. The intent that you have behind what you said, I think is really, really uncharitable or unkind. And what are they going to say? Oh, no, I meant it. No.
Well, I think you're right that there is a time and place. There's always the person, right? There's going to be the person where, you don't have to be all prickly and lower yourself down to the level. You can just be direct and straightforward. Hey, I'm going to just take this for what it really was. Yeah. I don't receive you. And on the other hand, though, sometimes that's just all they're wanting. That's what they're wanting, and so you got to read the room. Is it just you and them, or is it everybody? And who is it that's listening? Are they going to be able to grasp the depths of what you're saying, or not?
Yeah.
No. But I think you're right. Because I don't want to convey that we need to just always be la everything's good and pretend. Sometimes we just do need to say no. No.
Yeah. So I
see you.
and also it totally depends on where you are in the context, because I lived in Texas for a long time, and being in Texas, it was a big deal just to admit to someone that you were a non-believer. And now I live in the Pacific Northwest, and I live in Portland. And I can be a lot more detailed in things out here because it's not the same as living in Texas. It's not. I know I've got a couple of other callers that I'd love to talk to. Yeah. But Evan, thank you for calling. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I'm just across the river. We might bump into each other.
Oh my gosh. Are you in the Couve?
I am. We're on, I would tell you personally, but I'm basically in Vancouver. I'm not, but yes.
Okay. Evan, go to the Discord. I'll see you in the after show. We'll talk.
All right. I'll do the Discord. I don't do that stuff. I might even have to download the app, my friend, but I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll do that.
The show's going to be going on for at least another half hour. I hope to see you there.
Exactly. All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. All of that from a prompt of wanting to talk about Discworld. It is just so fun. If anybody has not picked up Terry Pratchett, I do recommend you check it out, because that is a really, really it's just nice. Sometimes you just need something nice like that. But I do want to talk to, let's talk to, I have two Johns, but I want to take the John in Canada because I both like John's question, and Canadian phone numbers are a little more expensive for me to pay for, so I'm just going to jump in on that. John, you're live on Skeptic Generation.
Hello, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm just getting your name in here so that you can be on the lower third. And while I do that, talk to me. What did you want to talk about today?
I'd like to know. I know that you were a Christian once. I'd like to know what made you lose your faith.
Oh my. So first off, are you coming at this from the stance of someone who currently believes, or like what? I'm trying to think of the context around this to help inform my response.
Well, I was raised Catholic, and okay. It's hard for me to explain. I was raised Catholic, and I tried to believe. I really did, but there was always a doubt.
Yeah.
And then when I became a teenager, I realized that there were other faiths out there, and I said to myself, how can Christianity be the right one if there are other faiths and they're all pretty much saying the same thing? And then I found out about evolution and stuff, and I just thought, okay, this can't be real. But there was still an element of faith lingering, and now at this very moment, I'm really not sure. That's my
it is so scary to be in that place of not sure. I want to commend you for actually being honest about that, because the type of Christianity that I was in, not knowing was one of the worst things, So I'm glad you're here. What to me is most important is that you have good reasons for what you believe, not necessarily that you come out of this agreeing with me, but that you have the epistemic justification, that you have that toolbox for understanding and believing what you believe for good reasons, and understanding why you believe the things you do. So, wanting to know how I lost my faith. Let me see here. It was kind of a death by 1,000 cuts, if I'm going to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
So it started out with questions as a believer that I just didn't understand. Like the logistics of Noah's Ark. When you're a young teenager, you kind of want a little bit more detail. And then, kind of really roughly formed versions of the problem of evil, right? Why do bad things happen to good people? That kind of stuff. In my church, questions like that got put down in a way that was not, I wasn't given satisfactory explanations. And eventually I was kind of alienated more and more, and not talked to, and treated more and more like an outsider by my own church. And so at that point, I still was a full-on believer. I just thought that my church probably didn't have it right, so I'm going to go find where God is. And at that point, I was in high school, and I had a little bit more wiggle room, and I was able to go to church with different friends. I had a Mormon friend. I went with them to their church. I did Methodist, Catholic, Southern Baptist, was wild. I did, let's see, a good number of Christian, and then I started kind of moving outside of that. I had a really good friend who was Baha'i that I spoke to a lot. I had a Taoist friend. She was in her 60s, and I adore her. She spent a decade on a nudist colony in the Pacific before moving back to the States, and she lent me her copy of the Tao, and so I read the Tao. I had a friend who was going to a local Native American sweat lodge, and we're doing kind of spiritual practices with the indigenous, group, the First Nations people in the area. And so I was invited and talked to a lot of people. And then I started really kind of getting really wooey, right? So each of these places I went, okay, I understand these people have a relationship with God, but it's not right. I'm trying to find where God is, and God isn't here exactly. It feels like everybody here has something, but it's not right. And so I started getting really kind of out there and changing my definition of God so that it could try and still work. I didn't want to let go of the God belief, so I needed to shift what that God was so that I could keep it. And I said, well, maybe God is some permeating force that just is the universe, And so I would do meditation. I did some drugs, as respectfully as I could, and tried to get in touch with that that concept of a collective unconscious. And
I see.
yeah, and so eventually I kind of went, okay, I'm messing with my brain chemistry. That's fun, but messing with my brain chemistry is not a good way to come up with, answers to what the real world is. I'm taking drugs. So I put that down, and I remember I had a friend, I was living in California, and I had a friend who was going to UCLA. And
Okay.
at UCLA, he was in the Jewish fraternity, Alpha Epsilon Pi. And I would go and party with them on the weekends. They were great guys. Everyone there was just super, super sweet. And there was a rabbi there who I would talk to. And, he was there to kind of be there for the students of that fraternity. And I had all these aggressive questions that I'd built up over time that nobody, to my satisfaction, had answered. At a certain point, I felt like I was a broken, and like I was a TV with a broken antenna, or a radio with a broken receiver, that maybe I'm just broken because everyone else can have this wonderful, beautiful thing called faith, and I just don't have it. And what is wrong with me? And I was asking these questions, and this rabbi looks at me and goes, Eric, if you don't believe, then just don't believe.
A rabbi told you that?
He did.
Oh.
He did. Well, you got to understand that rabbis aren't necessarily, they don't have the Great Commission to convince you to believe, He said, if you don't believe, just don't believe. That's fine. And I thought to myself, I didn't even really consider that as an option. I could do that, And so after that, I put it down, and I tell people I became an atheist. I didn't care. I was apathetic about religion. And it wasn't until later that I got back into it, and really kind of fell in love with reading the Bible, actually, which is funny, and counter-apologetics and the philosophy behind arguing against some really, really bullshit arguments for the existence of God. It became a hobby. It's something that I really loved, and that kind of one thing led to another, and here I am.
Interesting. So, like you said, it was the death by 1,000 cuts.
Right? I know that's a really long story, but I don't want to I don't want to make you think that it was, just one random thing that happened and shifted me. And I wouldn't want it to be one random thing that happens and shifts you, because if you change your mind on a dime, you're likely to change your mind again on a dime. Instead, ground what you believe in good reason and evidence. And when you do that, you're able to back it up and defend it. And I feel like those are the views, those are the things that I think can be held most strongly as true, because you can back it up and you can argue for it. So anyway, does any of that help or kind of contextualize anything for your own journey?
Yeah, it does help, because I want to know what it is I believe and know exactly what it is, and like you said, be able to defend it, but not just to other people, also to myself, because it doesn't make sense to believe something that you have no evidence for.
Right?
That's correct.
Oh yeah. But here's the thing, is if you take a look at oh my goodness, live chat, help me with this philosopher Christian who responded to nihilism with this oh my goodness, what is his name? Kierkegaard. So Soren Kierkegaard, I believe it's Kierkegaard, the live chat will correct me, said that, believing without good reason, right, and believing even though there's not enough evidence to support it, made you a better Christian.
Oh.
I know, right? And he felt that making the decision to take that leap of faith and accept that a God exists even when there's not good reason for it, really kind of showed your dedication and really truly showed you as a great Christian. So I feel like, John, you might be taking for granted this idea that, you should have good reason for what you believe. Not everybody thinks that. So cheers to you for being there.
Okay, I just have one more question.
Yeah, what's up?
Sometimes?
Yeah.
Do you miss the faith sometimes?
I'm sorry, say one more time?
I just want to know, do you miss it sometimes?
Do I miss it?
Faith?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
No.
That's all there. Yeah, go ahead. You just say something?
No, I'll just contextualize for you. I missed the community that I felt that I had, because I felt like I was a part of something where there were people I could spend time with and have things in common with. And when I learned that I could get those feelings from other communities that I was a part of, and I realized that like the religion did not have a stranglehold on feeling like you belong, that was the last piece that fully let me let go. So no, I don't miss it.
Oh, you have a new family now with the ACA and with the Bianca.
And just, I'm into a whole bunch of things. I got into building my own vapes. I got into a community around that. I got into Magic the Gathering. There's a massive community around that. I got into metalworking. I got into blacksmithing for a while, and the people there are incredible. Leatherworking, right? These maker communities, these fan communities. World of Warcraft I got into, and I got to tell you, I made some friends for life. Final Fantasy 14. Music. There's some people who are just so diehard when it comes to music that they create these amazing connections that last them for the rest of their lives, and they get this sense of belonging that I was taught you only got from church. So I missed it until I found out that I didn't need it and I could get those things elsewhere, and then I stopped missing it.
Oh, I'm happy for you. I really am. Well, thanks for talking to me. You've really been very helpful. Have a good day.
Hey, you too, and good luck in your journey. And I so appreciate that you're going through what you're going through, and just take your time with it. And I hope to hear from you again. Let me know where you wind up, even if we disagree.
Okay, perfect. I'll talk to you another time. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Bye, John.
Okay, bye-bye.
That was sweet. I know that's probably a lot for people who followed what I've done for a really long time, but hopefully that helps. All right, let's go to the next John, because they've been waiting for a long time. John in Texas. You are live.
Hello.
Hi. Ooh.
Hello, Eric.
Oh, hello. I'm sorry. I had to turn the volume way up for the last caller, so you blasted my eardrums out. Can you say something again?
Oh, I'm very sorry about that. I was just saying hello.
Hello. Okay, I've got it adjusted. No, it's not your fault. No worries. So let me just change the name here and get you going. In the meantime, John, what did you want to talk about?
So I called a few weeks ago and spoke to you and Drew, and I just really wanted to thank you for the advice that you've given me, because it really has worked. Even though it was a struggle at first, you gave me advice on setting boundaries with my theist family.
Hey!
And at first, it did not go as I was planning. Like, they were just really, really angry. They were mad. In fact, they didn't want to see me for a few weeks, and I didn't even get to see my kids for about 2 weeks. But then they reached out to me, and they're like, you know what, we really do miss you, and we understand that you don't believe, and we still think that you're going to go to hell and stuff like that. But they just kind of reached out and were like, well, but we still love you, kind of a thing.
That's a start.
So I think that that's going to kind of help out. And even my 5-year-old son was asking, well, where's my daddy? Where is he? Why can't I see him? And I think that's really what helped, is that he really wants to see me. And even though they are afraid that I'm going to turn my son into an atheist, I think they're just kind of starting to accept the fact that, you know what, this is our son, and we need to be in his life. And even though the mother of my kids is like, you need to be in your kid's life, and I 100% agree. So I'm really happy about that advice that you gave me.
Yay!
I was really dreading having to give them that talk about boundaries.
Oh, and you're going to find that you're not going to need to tiptoe as much as you did before. And it's really, really wonderful. I will tell you, because you'll probably find yourself in this situation. I remember when I first started setting those boundaries, I had a scenario where I was with those people for a holiday, and they all got together around the table, and they all joined hands, and then they looked at me so awkwardly. It was so uncomfortable. And then, and there was this.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. And there was this feeling from them of like, are we allowed to pray in front of you? You know, and I remember I took that as an opportunity to show grace. And I said to them, please don't let me interrupt you doing your faith traditions. Like, faith traditions, I understand, are really important to you. Please go ahead. I'll be right here. And doing that prevented them from trying to browbeat me into joining them. And it also made them feel comfortable doing what they were doing and recognizing that I was, you know, just right out there, rooting them on. They could do whatever they want to do, and that was fine. And it really helped. So if you do find yourself in that position, advice from me, that's what worked for me. But,
well, thank you. It's kind of working for me now. Yeah, okay. I mean, it does kind of feel weird to, you know, be at the dinner table with them. Like yesterday, I went and spent some time with them, spent the whole day, spent some time in the pool. But my dad grilled some burgers and hot dogs. And yeah, it kind of felt weird to be holding their hands during a prayer. But I was just glad to be able to spend some time with my family. They can just see me as a son, even though that they think that I'm going to be going to hell. And they're still trying to give me those little sermons, but I'm just like, I don't want to talk about this right now. We'll talk about this later. And later is basically going to turn into never, but they are starting to respect the fact that I really don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, and if they do really want to talk about it, they need to be open to listening to you and hearing what you have to say. That talking to you is not evangelizing to you. And if they want to evangelize to you, that's inappropriate. But if they want to talk to you, that conversation goes both ways.
Right, but I do feel like that they're trying to raise my son, though, and I do have an issue with that. And in fact, yesterday my son even asked my dad, who is a preacher, by the way, is God real? And I was really proud of my son for asking that question because he's only 5 years old.
Wow.
But my dad started going into like this whole speech of, oh, yes, God is real, and you can see him in every little thing. And he's like, well, why can't I see him? Well, because he's invisible, but he's there. And I'm just thinking, son, whenever you grow up, I'm going to tell you all about evolution. I'm going to tell you all about skepticism, and I want you to become, I basically want you to be a skeptic. I want you to be a successful person, but I want you to be happy.
Yeah,
kind of a thing. Like, I don't want him to be indoctrinated like I was, even though that I think my parents are trying to have more influence over him than I would like. But that's something for another day.
I think a good goal would be hoping that your child has good reasons for believing the things that they believe. Personally,
right. Well, and also another thing is that my wife, or my ex-wife, basically is also a Christian, so that's another issue.
Yeah.
But she's starting to accept the fact that I don't believe. At first, whenever I came out to her that I wasn't a believer, she started threatening, well, I won't let you see the kids if you don't believe, as if like that threat would make me start believing in God again.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a funny one. But I keep with it. And also, you know, when it comes to evangelizing to your kid, you know, as they understand you more, talk to them and say, hey, you know, what you're doing by preaching to my kid, just think about if I were to pull them aside every time, even in front of you, and tell them, you know, that that God belief is silly and not true, how that would make you feel.
Right. I didn't talk to my son about it just simply because I don't want to cause any problems.
Right.
And also he's 5, so he's not at the age of reason yet.
No, I'm thinking about your father.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That there is an impact to what he's doing, and that impact, right? I will give an example that's kind of close to home, but I feel like it's okay. Is when I was, actually, it might be a little too close to home. I'll put it this way. You talking about being an atheist may make them uncomfortable. And them talking about their Christianity might make you feel uncomfortable. But I feel like the best thing is to recognize that it's uncomfortable, for everyone to recognize that, and for everyone to help share carrying the weight of that. That way you don't have to be the only one carrying all that weight. That if it's going to be uncomfortable, that they can be uncomfortable a little bit too. It's not just on you.
Right,
you know?
because, I mean, we have different points of view, and so they conflict with each other.
Yeah.
So obviously there is a little bit of discomfort. But you know what really does grind my gear as an atheist, though?
What's up?
Whenever a theist tells me that since I don't have anything to base my morals off of, that I am a horrible person, that I have no morals, and that I approve of horrible things. Like yesterday, I was talking to some person yesterday, was like, he kept telling me, well, if you don't believe in God, or if you don't believe in anything, you can't base your morals off of anything, so you're okay with child trafficking. I'm like, no, I am not okay with that. In fact, as an atheist, my morality comes from empathy and from common sense.
Yeah.
So my rule is that which I wouldn't want done to me, I don't do to others.
So,
and just as I wouldn't want my own children to be trafficked, I don't want other people's children to be trafficked, because it's a horrible thing.
Right. So, John, you're not going to believe this, but this is actually the full topic of what the next caller is calling in about. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no, this is a perfect segue. So I'm gonna take advantage of it. John, thank you for calling in, and I hope you stay tuned, because this next conversation that I'm going to have has everything to do with what you just said.
Yes. All right, that's fine. I don't want to steal the next guy's thunder, since that's his topic, and I called him with a different topic. But thank you for taking my call. Oh, and by the way,
What's up?
Thank you for forgiving me about that producer comment. I didn't realize that you were the only producer, and that was me who made that comment. But thanks for
there's no offense. Honestly, I think the best thing I can do is be proud of it, because I agree. Kicking butt, but there's no offense taken. You're super good. No worries. If anything, it gave me the opportunity to bring that up and let people know, because yeah, like right now I'm talking to you, I'm having this conversation, and I'm also checking the live chat, the chat from my moderators. We have got a private chat so that they can send me messages, checking the audio levels and the connection to YouTube. So like, it's always this constant, juggling act, but doing my best.
All right, well, keep kicking ass out there, man. You're doing a great job.
Appreciate you, John. Thank you for tuning in.
All right, bye-bye.
What a sweetheart. All right, with that said, let's move on to our next caller. They are using a pseudonym, Philo-Sophistry. I absolutely love that. You are live. How's it going?
Awesome. I'm doing well. How's your day going today?
Doing well. I'm just trying my best. It says that you want to talk about the Atheist Atrocities fallacy, which is kind of exactly what I was talking to the last caller about. Do you want to kind of tee us up?
Yeah, so I guess, I talk to a lot of Christians through multiple platforms online, and also people of other religions. And one of the things that they bring up often is, they'll say things like, oh, well, you atheists, you've killed the most. Your worldview isn't tenable because of Hitler, because of Mao, because of Stalin, because of Pol Pot, because of, any other name that they can think of to throw in there. And, I got to push back against that when I hear it pretty much every single time, because, there's if you actually zoom in, if you are a student of history and you look at all the details, it's like Germany at the time was like a 89 to 90 something percent, Christian nation. And one of the first things that Hitler did was ban membership in free thought in the free thought communities. I mean, he did that even before I think the signing the Reichskonkordat with the Catholic Church. So it's always just really interesting to me, and I kind of wanted to get your take. Like, am I off base in pushing back against some of this stuff? Because none of it was done in the name of atheism, but if we actually look back at the atrocities, there's like, the Pope Nicholas, the edict that he did saying that you may enslave non-Christians, or if you go back all the way back to like the 4th century, when Constantine said that, yeah, it's really cool for Christians to, destroy the pagan temples, to kill the worshippers of idols and stuff like that. So pretty much ever since Christianity's formation, it's been like a bloodbath, right?
Oh, it's even worse. It's even worse because it's been around since before Christianity. It was around in Torah. It was in the Old Testament. I believe it was, I think it was Genesis or Exodus, where it says, take your slaves from the peoples around you, right? You have in the conquest of Canaan, they were commanded to absolutely eradicate. And I mean, we're talking like genocide. The Amalekites, huge, groups, swaths of Canaanites, and all of that was done. Yeah, no. So if we want to get into like the nitty gritty of it, I think it's good to stand up against that. I remember one of the worst debates I'd ever been in. You could probably still find it online. I was invited to a 2v2, 2-on-2 debate. It was in Nashville, Tennessee. I remember they paid me nothing. It cost me like over $1,000 just to get there and get a hotel. And the moderator wound up turning it into his own podcast. So it was just really cringy. But the person, one of the people that I was debating against, they said that, atheists, being an atheist means that you need to be okay with, genocide and all of that stuff, because what's to stop you, right? There's no objective morality. And
right. I
think that pointing things out like, why, what makes something objective? The old line of argument there is, are you good because God tells you to be? And if that's the case, are you good at all, or are you just being a good follower? And the other side of that is, if you see that God is good because of the good things that are becoming evident, then is God good, or are you giving God that quality of goodness versus that God having goodness, intrinsically? And so, it as a thought experiment for non-believers, just navel gazing, I think it's really like cool to bring up, and especially when you're talking to believers who are willing to listen, it's important to kind of bring those things up. But ultimately, recently, I'm sorry, I'm scattered all over the place because there are so many different places I want to jump in. I'll say recently. Oh
yeah, me too. Because ADHD, I'm all over the place.
Same here. Okay. So you understand me. Okay. 1 second. I'm going to drink some water. Okay. So recently, I was interacting with, an internet Christian apologist who's just a pain in the ass, and the line of reasoning that they were giving was, if you believe in evolution, then you believe in survival of the fittest, and to be consistent, you must also, be against adoption and taking care of the sick, because they're a drain on society. And, also, if you don't believe in a God and you believe in evolution, then you have to be against charity or helping the elderly, because they're all a drain, and, and just kind of creating those awful comparisons. And ultimately, evolution, right? The theory of evolution, is not social Darwinism. Right? Darwinian
Right. I would agree with that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Darwinian evolution has to do with outside factors influencing successive generations and being able to survive the best that they can, and that eventually leading to speciation. That is a conversation about, describing what you're seeing, right? Social Darwinism is people trying to take that and make it an ought, and go, we ought to have survival of the fittest, and that's really kind of what informed Hitler and those people when it came to thoughts of genocide. Is kind of developing that Übermensch mentality, and the fittest and the strongest have deserved to survive the most, and
Sure.
recognizing that that's not evolution, that's social Darwinism. Pointing that out is important. Let's see, what else? Narcissism is a thing. You're not talking about evolution or atheism. You're talking about narcissism. You can do whatever you want. You can be cruel to people. Not everyone wants to be cruel. And if you're assuming that, that's a really, really weird narcissism that you're placing on everybody else. But you are discussing narcissism and not the topic that you think you're discussing. Or you could be discussing, I had a whole list that I was working on recently. But just every step along the way, recognizing those things for what they are, and pointing them out, defining them is better. But if you want a fallacy at the heart of it, what you can point out is it is the appeal to consequences, I believe. The
appeal to consequences.
The appeal to consequences. The ad consequentium, I forget how to pronounce it, but essentially, if they are trying to, even if you grant the consequences that they're trying to provide, which are terrible, right? Even if you were to give them the best version of their argument that you can, what it is it's an appeal to consequences. So essentially, this thing is bad, I don't like it, therefore it's not true. So point that out. Say, okay, well, you want to talk about, if you want to talk about Holocaust and genocide, let's talk about it. So it was terrible, right? You don't like that. It was bad. So therefore it never happened. Right? And they'll shut up real quick because, they're not, most people are not Holocaust deniers. But at the heart of that argument is I don't like it, therefore it's not true. And pointing that out has helped me.
Sure. If we go back to when you had mentioned the objective morality, that they feel like they have some sort of objective morality, one of the things that I often like to point out is that just because your book doesn't change doesn't mean that the ways that you interpret it don't change. And so if it's subject to interpretation, then your morality is no longer objective. And by definition, it's subjective now. So like way back, who was it? Giordano Bruno, who was burned at the stake for teaching a bunch of things that now we just accept as commonplace. But at the time when he was burned at the stake, it was because they went against church teachings. It's like, well, but you wouldn't do that to somebody now, but you would do it then because he was going against the church's teachings. Therefore, you do not have objective morality. Your morality has changed between then, when that was okay, and now, where you wouldn't do that at all.
You're absolutely right.
So,
yeah, from the apostles to the first members of the Christian church to the councils of Trent and Nicaea to Thomas Aquinas, all the way through to Ratzinger and Martin Luther King, right? Each of them, they think that they pray to the same God, but the God that they believed in was one that closely aligned to the principles and moral viewpoints that they did. Their God changed with them because that is what ultimately they're doing, is they're creating their God, and it is constantly being adjusted. And while that is to me true, it's not going to get you anywhere in conversation with Christians. Unfortunately, I've tried it. But I do want to affirm to you that, yeah, no, you're right. You are.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for calling in. And it's such a distasteful argument. Ultimately, you can also view it technically as a straw man argument, right? They don't want to talk about what you are talking about. Instead, they're going to create something that they can easily tear down and attack that instead.
Right.
So that's a straw man. And yeah, we can go on, but I hope to hear from you again. This was a good topic.
Yeah. Have a great Sunday.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. So I do have Brendan in the queue, but I got to tell you, when it comes to hosting and producing at the same time and all of that, not being able to walk away means that when you got to go to the restroom, you really got to go. So I sincerely apologize. And Brendan, I hope that you call in next week because I really would love to talk to you. But I am human and I have got to go to the restroom. So that said, I'm going to start wrapping things up. I want to, as always, read the super chats. And it looks like Terrible Liar said, here to help pay those pesky Canadian phone calls. Terrible Liar, thank you. That $5 absolutely does help. And I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you all for sticking around. I hope you all have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day today. And yeah, for those of you who want to join me in the after show, hop on to Discord. Link is in the description to this video. I hope to see you there. And stay tuned because in the outro, I do thank our patrons. If you want to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/skepticgeneration and get access to all kinds of cool stuff, and every little bit helps to make this show happen. So thank you for your support. And also stay tuned for the volunteers, because also in the outro, I thank the volunteers, and I would not be able to do it without them. So thank you for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you in the live show and see you next week. Oh, I got to remember to say our closing line. I've been forgetting it. I'm Eric Murphy, and I'm glad we had this talk.